March 7, 2007. The Boeing 737-497 of Garuda Indonesia operated a domestic flight GA200 on the route Jakarta-Yogyakarta. There were 140 people on board, 133 passengers and 7 crew members. The aircraft was flown by an experienced captain, 44-year-old Muhammad M. Komar, with a total flying time of 13,421 hours. And the less experienced co-pilot, 30-year-old Gagamest Rahman, with only 1,528 flight hours. 5 flight attendants worked in the cabin of the aircraft. Flight GA200 took off from Jakarta at 4:30 and headed for Yogyakarta. The entire flight went without a hitch. At 7:17, when approaching runway number 09, the captain clarified with the co-pilot the altitude and heading data and proceeded to descend. The captain focused on landing the plane, which led him to a state of fixation. In this state, a person focuses on only one task and may not react to the world around him: loud sounds, bright lights. When approaching the runway, the captain did not respond to a rather loud GPWS alarm, due to which, according to the instructions, the crew had to go around. The co-pilot gave the command to extend the flaps to 15 degrees, but the captain did not respond to the command of the co-pilot, and the flaps were not moved to this position, since the aircraft speed, which the captain did not follow due to the lock state, was too high to change the position of the flaps, and they could be torn off. The alarm, Master Caution, did not stop. The co-pilot repeated the command, but the captain did not react. Why the co-pilot did not report the inadmissibility of changing the position of the flaps remained unclear. At 7:18 hours, touching down on runway 09 with flaps in the wrong position, flight GA200 jumped up and entered a goat that started 787 feet before the nominal touchdown zone. At the second runway touchdown, the nose landing gear collapsed, and the thrust reversers of both engines were deployed only 4 seconds after landing, but were removed 7 seconds before the liner rolled out of the runway. The liner drew the entire runway with its nose rolled out of its limits, broke through the airport fence, crossed a small ditch and the adjacent highway, crashed into a roadside embankment. The nose part with the cockpit and the right wing, which ignited upon impact, were torn off from the impact. The liner rolled out onto the rice field and came to a stop 826 feet past the end of runway number 09. Jet fuel leaked from punctured tanks ignited. Yogyakarta Airport fire trucks were unable to reach the crash site through a broken fence due to a ditch, road, and embankment. As a result, the first fire brigades arrived at the crash site only after 45 minutes. In addition, firefighters were unable to apply enough foam to put out the fire, as a hose they were dragging across the road was pierced by rescue vehicles and other vehicles, as well as the airport fence. The fire was eventually extinguished 2 hours and 10 minutes after the disaster. The liner burned down completely, relatively, only the tail section, left wing, and both engines survived. The crash killed 21 people, 1 flight attendant and 20 passengers. Another 112 people were injured of varying severity. The Indonesian National Transportation Safety Committee, NTSC, was investigating the causes of the GA200 crash. The final report of the investigation was published on October 22, 2007. According to the report, the thrust reversers of both engines worked properly and both were deployed during landing in Yogyakarta. The weather was calm. It was also noted that Yogyakarta Airport did not meet international security standards. The key finding of NTSC is that the captain operated the aircraft in an excessively steep descent and high airspeed of 240 knots, rather than the normal 140 knots during approach and landing, which resulted in unstable flight. The captain's attention was fixated on landing from the first approach, and he ignored the warnings of the co-pilot and his recommendations for go-around, as well as the signals of the GPWS sink rate. The co-pilot was unable to take control of the aircraft under these circumstances, presumably due to poor training. The flaps were not fully extended to 40 degrees and not even to 15 degrees, but only to 5 degrees. The co-pilot knew that this was the recommended maximum for such a high airspeed, but did not inform the captain. As of March 1, 2007, Garuda Indonesia introduced a new fuel efficiency incentive that provided a salary bonus if the fuel consumption of a flight was below par. During interrogation by NTSC investigators, the captain denied that this circumstance influenced his decision not to abort the landing. On February 4, 2008, Flight 200 crew captain Mohammed Komar was arrested and charged with murder. He was threatened with life imprisonment if the court proved the intention of his actions, which caused the disaster, but if his actions were recognized as unintentional, he was threatened with up to 7 years in prison. The co-pilot stated in his testimony that he suggested that the captain go around, but he did not respond. On April 6, 2009, Mohammed Komar was found guilty of negligence and sentenced to 2 years in prison. Lawyers tried to challenge the court's verdict on the basis of the ICAO Convention, according to which the report on the investigation of the causes of the plane crash cannot be used to prove the guilt of certain persons. The Garuda Indonesia Pilots Association and the Indonesian Pilots Federation threatened to go on strike to protest the verdict. On September 29, 2009, the Supreme Court of Indonesia dropped all charges against Captain Komar, noting that the prosecutor's office could not convincingly prove his guilt. The case was later mentioned in a report by the American Bar Association. Garuda Indonesia changed the Jakarta-Yogyakarta flight number from GA200 to GA202 as a tribute to the 21 who died on Flight 200. Boeing 737-800 flies on it.